Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, and I'm totally doing it at a different time because I am doing office hours later on this afternoon for Team Element athletes. My name is Tennille Hooglin. I'm so glad to be here and come back to you here in the Facebook group, Athletes Thriving in Perimenopause and Beyond. It has been an incredible, it's been an incredible week and a half. Of a whirlwind. And on Tuesday last week, I flew to Boston, Massachusetts for the Female Athlete Conference. And I had this grand idea that I would be able to, come live every day and share my thoughts. But let me tell you, we started at 7:45 every morning. And we finished just after 5. And by that time, I was so done. I was so tired. And then there were still, events to be had in the evening and hardly a moment to just really come down and come into what the whole thing was about. So, alas, here I am finally coming back to you and wanting to report back some of the really interesting findings. So where we are and the findings that we had with the Female Athlete Conferences, and one of the most striking things was in and about whether we should train in alignment with our menstrual cycle. And let me first just acknowledge that if you are on an oral contraceptive or you have an oral contraceptive in a pill form, you do not have you are not cycling naturally, and your hormones are shut down from the estrogen and progesterone standpoint, and you have been given hormones that create just the flat line of a flat line essentially. So whether you need to cycle your training actually isn't, there is no change. So there's not really a discussion there, except for, and this is what I can talk to a little bit more, except for when you want to come into having a cycle, like creating cycle for you. And I think there's something really important around that. So this discussion, what was happening at the conference is there was the question, should we train with our cycle, our menstrual cycle? And what does the research say? And before I provide the answer to that, I want to say 60 to 80% of female athletes believe that their menstrual cycle does impact their training. So that's a pretty high value. The research is not showing definitively. Now I'm going to qualify it again. The physiological research. So when we test 30-second effort or a steady state effort at different phases of the cycle, it is not showing consistently that there is better points of training than others they're not finding that there's a consistency of results there. In fact, for some of the athletes that they were following, they would change. They would do some points of their cycle, they would perform very well, and then they would switch it at other points of their cycle in the next month. So that ends up being completely random, completely among all the athletes that they tested, the female athletes that they tested, it ended up being completely random. When you have complete random, there's no trend lines, and we can't make a call. The interesting thing is that for some athletes, it was clear there was a pattern. But, when you're grouping, when you're bringing a group together and trying to find group norms, those athletes and their experiences no longer matter. And Dr. Kirsty Elliott-Sale kept on getting up in the Female Athlete Conference and saying, look at everybody, there's something here about symptoms, and I don't know what it is, but we need to be thinking about symptoms. And I think that that's a really excellent point that she's making, because we all experience and our menstrual cycle, or have experienced in the past the menstrual cycle that can be different. For example, I use the experience of my fertility and how every other month was just a bad month. I was never going to get pregnant on the every other month, because that ovary would, my experience and my ovulation and the quality of my eggs, everything was just not working from that one side. And it was always a dud. Always, like, it was just like every other month. And I think I don't know how that's tied in. I don't, because I'm not I'm not an expert in this area, although I want to keep on coming up and as a coach and saying, well, what is it about the athlete that I have in front of me? And what is their experience? And how do we understand what matters to them? And because that therein lies the most important thing, right? And I know that Dr. Stacey Sims is very clear that there is a difference in our menstrual, like in our way of supporting our training and in alignment with our menstrual cycle, from both a nutritional standpoint, because we need more if we're coming into our period. So the second half, because we're warmer. If you're wearing an Aura ring, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your body temp is going up. It's showing it every single day. And so we know that things have shifted and things have changed. And I think that so that's my first point, is that no evidence thus far in group norms, but you're not a group. You are an N of one. And I think it's really, really, I even made this point that we have to be incredibly careful when we're talking about, as experts, talking about whether it matters or not. I don't think that we can make any definitive. I think that we have to get into the precision. We talk about precision medicine, we talk about individualization, and I think that we're there. I think that athletes are getting, and coaches too, are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And we have more access to technology that is shifting our ways of thinking and our awareness of, and supporting our awareness of our bodies. And therefore, we can adapt. We don't need to push through everything, or we can push through because we're feeling damn good. And we can eke out that little extra something. And why wouldn't we? So comes to my next point. So understanding, like bringing in the symptoms. And then the third point that I want to make is the integration. And in this research, it became really clear to me that we talk about it in such isolation. We research it in such isolation. And there's not, there was, except for with one researcher, and that was Katie Schofield. I want to say, I'm just going to look at her. I'm trying to find her card. And except for her research, people weren't understanding the integration of what else is going on, else is happening in and around the cycle, or what are those extraneous factors that are coming in, and how do those impact how we train, and how do those impact how we fuel ourselves, and what are those downstream effects of that. And that's important, because we're whole athletes. We don't get to we're just not physiological beings. We are actually, we take in all of it. You had a hard conversation with a loved one, or something happened in your family, and is training going to be hard that day? Yeah. How do you feel on that day checking in? I propose that maybe we need to do a check-in, like where are you at for your training today? How are you feeling today? Is this a good day? Like, we know that when you're doing these assessments that they're hard. And are you up for it? Where's your energy level? What happened, in the training block before that? There's so many other factors that we're not necessarily considering. The fourth thing that I want to say is that, and this is, coming into the perimenopause, And in the postmenopause, more particularly in the postmenopause, or for those that are on an oral contraceptive, or that are not aware of their cycle. If they have an IUD, they're still having a cycle, but they're not aware of when they have their period, because it's just not happening. And the cyclical nature of our bodies is so aligned with, this is my belief, is that we're so aligned with the environment. We're aligned with the moon. We're aligned with, the night and the day. And when we come into higher alignment with that, then we are able to, we have a more optimal idea of performance, because we're aligned with our very being. We are connected and to the environment. It's why when we go into, if we have, there's enough science that says if you have a brain injury, or if you have concussion, what do? You go into the trees. What's happening in the trees? Well, there's just trees. They're nourishing. If this is the environment nourishes us. And so if we align with the environment and the cyclical nature of our months, there is a chance that we become better in alignment. And isn't it beautiful as females that we have this incredibly beautiful flow that aligns with this and gives us cycle and enables us to thrive in the push and the pull. And so whether you have a cycle or you don't have a cycle, I believe, and I train my athletes in a very cyclical way to have the recovery, to come back and say, how do I nourish? Taking in that week that we nourish, and hopefully my athletes don't fill in all the blanks and actually think, okay, well, what am I going to do that is just luscious and beautiful that I don't always do because I'm so busy training and trying to keep up? And, can we release some of that pressure in that week before your period, or the week at any point, so that you can kind of be like, this is my adaptation, this is my rejuvenation, this is my nourishment. And I think that can go a long ways. We have such fear, and there's been such fear that you take a break and we lose our fitness, and it's exactly the opposite. And so I want to encourage this, understanding that do we need to train in alignment with our menstrual cycle? Well, as we go into the postmenopause, there is no menstrual cycle anymore. So, but do we train in alignment with cycle? Yes, because that is just, I believe that's how we work in our optimal health. So it's getting a little bit out there, I admit. And I think, but I also think it's just the way, if you think of everything in life, it comes in cycle. So that's the Facebook Live, and just the wonderful learnings and considerations that we have with it. And I hope that this is helpful to you and you enjoy it. Have a brilliant day, everybody, and we will catch you soon.